A lot of people nowadays will say that's a good thing. No, it's not. Because we used to be a force to be reckoned with. Yeah. And it wasn't about being mean or unethical or unlawful or anything like that. Because we've joined the national trend of kinder, gentler, we have also lost the effectiveness of all the police. Because here's the deal. If today they made an announcement, hey, this has all been bullshit, we are going to implement and authorize our officers to make no-knock entry warrants, no-knock entries on warrants and entries, period. The first bumble of a warrant, somebody gets hurt, somebody gets killed, and justifiably even, and they're a person of color, and it makes the news, they will cease, and you know that. They will cease at that moment, and these activists will come out and go, see, we told you so. Wow. We can't win with those people. The administration doesn't care. If you ask them, they'd say they do. But we're the ones thinking of those things.
The opinions expressed here do not necessarily reflect those of our sponsors.
Blu Wolf Podcast.
This episode of the Blu Wolf Podcast is brought to you by Blue Line Professional Inspections. Check out blinspections.net for all your inspection needs, including home inspection, wood-destroying insect inspection, sewer drain inspection, and on-site water treatment inspection. Blue Line is a first responder-owned business.
We were waiting for them to get guns. And if we had a lot of the crew, what we call the crew identified, we try to get them on organized crime, not just burglary of a vehicle, which is the Class A misdemeanor, right?
Right.
So why are we doing that on our own, not a directive? It's because we want to protect the public more. The administration doesn't care. If you ask them, they'd say they do. But we're the ones thinking of those things.
So can we segue to this part that we talked about the other day? And that's exactly what happens, because police officers out there, the working police officer understands that they can improvise. That's what we get paid to do, right? And not like a Marine thing.
Yeah.
Improvise, overcome.
Yeah.
Well, police officers do that too, and they understand. So when the chief of this department decided to use policy to basically end around the law and the peace officer's authority under SAPD to execute search warrants, either no-knock or forced entry, what we started doing around here was what we always done. We had such great relationships with other organizations, right? So in Cobra, we had HIDA. HIDA has all these different reefs aside. And we would ask those guys to execute our warrants. So when we had the warrant, we couldn't run it, right? Couldn't do a no-knock warrant. And so we would let DEA run it, or we would let the county, we would let HSI, we would let whoever else could run it because they could run it at the time.
So you said county. County's not a Fed. County, Bear County.
Yeah. So county has a group at the tag, right? It's the Texas anti-gang.
Yeah.
For state-funded gang.
But county can still run no-knock warrants.
And huge credit to them.
Where they be knocking them out.
It's huge credit to them, because traditionally the sheriff has always kind of been in line with the chief of police, except this was the first major parting of the ways.
Yeah.
And I always thought, and so just to be clear, you got to give respect where it's needed, right? You got to give kudos where it should be. And I give him huge kudos for not following suit. The county still executes no-knock warrants and handles their business. And, and of course, some of it's self-induced, like a politician too, right? Wants to do the trophy shots. That's their job. I 100% support that. I always thought that our job was to make the head of our agency shine. That's our job.
Yeah.
And so take all the credit, do all those things. But I can't believe that nobody in 4 years, because it's almost been 4 years now, has even had enough of an insight to ask the question, like, hey, how come we haven't done any of these big operations? How come there hasn't been any big old, photo shoots with, 57 guns that were seized during the search warrant and 15 kilos?
You see it all from county.
Yeah, but you see nothing. The media here knows it. They love that stuff.
Yeah.
But they just don't care.
No.
It's
something they should talk about.
Things, back in the day with the gang, we were doing big organized gang investigations of major gang groups. And I'm not going to give many names because they don't even deserve to be named. Mm-hmm. But they were really big crews here, like very organized prison gang. And we were knocking them out. Not happening.
It's not happening anymore. No. We have lost in San Antonio our our intimidation on the public. And again, some people will say, well, that's good.
On the criminal
public. Yeah. And a lot of people nowadays will say that's a good thing. No, it's not. Because we used to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about being mean or, unethical or unlawful or anything like that. Because we've joined the national trend of kinder, gentler, we have also lost the effectiveness of all the police. And I always tell people, from the moment I'd say when I was a patrolman, or you was whatever, when you wore a uniform, I stepped out to the public. I'm using force already. That's my first level of force in my use of force continuum is my presence. And if I have to say, hey, you stop, there's my verbal. Because of what society has allowed, city governments, politicians, up from the national side to include our own, we have lost the effectiveness of our presence and our verbal.
So, and there's no more deterrent, right? I mean, the police officers should offer a degree of deterrence, right? Sure, that's our job, right? And
that's why they're having shootings at Fiesta, at downtown.
That never happened before.
And
it's important to qualify too. There have always been shootings in the perimeter areas.
Yeah, not in the heart.
So in other words, even after the New Year's Eve celebration, right? Somebody be walking, start chatting, they've been drinking back and forth, and someone gets shot and unfortunately killed. And that happens, but in the heart of it?
Yeah.
Like in it?
Oh, yeah.
Like at Market Square?
Yeah, and we're referencing the shootings that happened this Fiesta. Yeah. I would almost say right in the center of Market Square.
Yeah.
Two thugs. One of them definitely was. I don't really know. They didn't harp on the history of the other guy, but most likely shot each other, shooting at each other in the middle of that. And then an officer had to shoot one of the winner of them within that. So moving on, we've said pretty much the SAPD has banned no-knock warrants, banned them. And they pretty much, when we talk about going up, knocking, announcing that we told them our intentions, we told them we've got a warrant, they don't, they say, you know what, go screw yourself. Yeah. We are still allowed to by law, to make forceful entry. We can't do that in San Antonio.
And there goes that policy to circumvent state law.
Right.
And Joe Gonzalez did that too. And I'm not jumping on the whatever you called him, Joe. But I mean, he did the same thing with drugs.
Oh, he needs to be jumped on. That guy's employed.
He has decriminalized. It started out with under a gram, and now it's up to 4 grams of a Schedule 1 drug. Like, really? 4 grams? So one is the state jail felony, right? And the other is the third degree.
Yep.
And now you're taking third degree felonies and you're just wiping what? And it's just like, it's not even diversion anymore. It's just like, we're just dismissing it.
Yeah.
And so because
they think that they're, and again, we're related. We're in an era of feelings. Okay. So this group, because Joe was, now that we know he's being guided by the Ren Collective, a woke group of attorneys out of Boston. We know that. We were talking about it last night. I was just right across the street over here at this meeting, and everybody was talking about that. So what they equate that to is that if they have less than 4 grams, it's a usable amount. So we're not hitting the drug dealers, we're getting the poor drug user.
Right.
And that's not right.
Yeah, and so that was those things were made at the DA's office because we both have friends that were high up in the DA's office, over the course of our careers. And many of them were great prosecutors. They've lost them. It's a huge disservice to the community because they were good at their jobs. They were trial lawyers. They could get in there and argue the case and get a conviction, right? Not plead them out. I could get in there and argue the case to 12 people. They're gone. And so, but at the district attorney's office, it was largely public opinion. The guy that just recently retired, I think his name is Christensen, he was open about it. Like he said, I just don't think.
No, he's a total activist.
Yeah. So, but he's the first assistant. Yeah. And then Joe was the DA. So you had these people now taking their personal inner feelings, like my personal thoughts.
Yes.
And I am now using policy to circumvent the law. Well, then you shouldn't be in that job. And it's no different for the chief of police.
Much of this is unlitigated. It's.
So what has he done, Willie? So what has the McManus done using policy to circumvent what we?
He's choked us.
Well, he's done most recently search warrants, can't do entries, right? No knock warrants, can't chase vehicles.
Yeah.
Right. Chasing individuals has been discussed. About like, should we even be chasing individuals? Well, what do you want us to do?
Yeah.
But
I was part of some, and they'll always leave that but, unless unless. There's always that unless. Serious, like you can't let this person go. The last one I remember was when we were after that medical center rapist.
Yeah, we worked that with you.
We were onto him, and different times in the surveillance, somebody would lose them a little bit, and then they'd pick them up, and someone got on the radio and said, "Hey, we will not lose him. We will, if he runs, we will chase him." I thought that's awesome. I'm like, great. I'm right there with you. I was at a plane vehicle at the time, but it's the same way with chokeholds too. Chokeholds obviously were banned because of George Floyd. And I don't want to get off on a tangent with chokeholds, but chokeholds, you can't even grab somebody by the neck.
So that's a great example, because I was a part of those discussions, not part of it, but there. And, and I will give him credit, because I do think you got to give credit where it's credit due. McManus really did argue the point that, yes, chokeholds are dangerous, but if an officer is in a position to where he believes his life is in immediate danger of death or serious bodily injury, he can use that. And they were still popping him around.
Yeah.
And ultimately he folded.
Because they're active.
Yeah. And again,
they're activists.
It's like he was trying to make the argument, which is the only time I ever saw him try to make the argument. And then someone got in his ear, one of his aides, and the next thing you know, it went away. But it really, for me, what it boils down to is that the people that ultimately really suffer, they just don't know they're the ones that are losing, are the citizens. Because the police department, I always say, man, we're your San Antonio Police Department. We work for you. We live here. We are you. Why is City Hall so adverse against us? That never happened.
It doesn't, and I get what you're saying. So the easy answer of why they're doing all this is they're cowards. They don't want to answer the hard questions. Because here's the deal. If today they made an announcement, hey, this has all been bullshit, we are going to implement and authorize our officers to make no-knock entry warrants, no-knock entries on warrants and entries, period. The first jumble of bumble of a warrant, somebody gets hurt, somebody gets killed, and justifiably even, and they're a person of color, and it makes the news, they will cease, and you know that. They will cease at that moment, and these activists will come out and go, see, we told you so. Well, we can't win with those people.
Well, I have actually heard the deputy city manager ask the chief of police if the subject that was the fatally wounded was fine.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
And I'm like, look, the first thing I'd really like to hear is the officer okay? And it was the rope shooting. And so he was wanted. They went over there, struggled. One of their guns fell down. Guy got shot. Fortunately, the camera.
Yes.
But now there was a lot of things that could. Wow. There are a lot of things that could be really looked at. And I was the captain there at the time. And so obviously there was a lot of mistakes made. There was a lot of mistakes in terms of gun retention and things like that.
100%.
However, when you take that away, the bottom line is the guy picked up the gun and the camera.
You can see it. And he was ready to shoot. Yep. Finger the trigger.
But, when you start asking questions like that, you can no longer be objective in the way you're thinking.
No.
It doesn't matter the race of someone. It just means, should we have done what we did, and are we justified in doing it?
Yeah, but again, these people, and you and I both know, and you're one of the few, and I'm going to say this, not because you're here, but you're one of the few because you understood the job, that you can listen to the officers explain their actions and you can relate to it, going, okay, you're right. But then you were willing to go up and explain that to the people that don't know and say, hey, that's just the way it is. And what was that saying? Yeah, it looks awful, but it was lawful. Yeah. And some things you're just going to have to go with.
And a lot of things really do look awful. When I tell you what they never talk about looking awful is that this year and last year, we've had so many officers shot at. We were there was an officer at that church about 8 or 9 months ago. We're just sitting there writing a report. Guy pulls up next door, unloads equipment. Yeah. Remember, I think he was a brand new guy with an FPO or something.
Yeah.
It's like, that's awful. But I get a little bit of press, but nobody harps on it.
Yeah, but we have too many people that done the unrealistic idea of how those interactions work. There's things that just come out at random. They just come out random. There's so many. I always, as a tactical trainer, I would put on scenarios. And my scenarios, I believe, were realistic. I never heard anything otherwise. And I would tell them, look, you need to use these tactics and to qualify them and verify them, validate them. You need to give them a chance in the real world. Okay? Don't half-ass them, because if you half-ass them, you can't blame it on my tactics that I taught you. Okay? But I always told them that the real situation you're going to run into will not be one of the scenarios that I put you through. Even if I had time to put you through a million, it's going to be different.
Well, because one of the things that I think, and I know we're getting towards that time point now, but one of the things that people really never ever take the time to think, and certainly don't want to articulate, is the police are really the only ones that are playing by the rules.
Yeah,
and
I've always said that.
And those rules are being shifted all the time because of politics, because of policy, because of personal opinion in terms of the DA.
Always.
And so the rules are always changing, but the officer's job always remains the same. You know, he still has to go to work. He still has to do his job. He still has to make contact with people that he don't know. And everybody knows who they are because they're wearing a uniform.
Yeah.
I have a daughter in law enforcement. You come from a family of law enforcement people.
Yeah.
We were law enforcement people. I can tell you, I can be objective. I can tell you, I don't think every officer does the right thing on every occasion.
No.
I know. I don't. And in my job, I had to initiate disciplinary action. And I would do that if I felt it was necessary.
Sure.
And so, you know, I guess that's the hardest thing to accept. But when we're talking about these things here, I just don't think you can make blanket statements based on some very terrible things or perceived terrible things that happened in a very terrible year that 4 years later are still being affected.
But it had to do with race.
Right.
It had to do with, and I meant to bring it up again, but it was just going to be touched on. I don't think it matters when I bring it up. But everything stems from the Breonna Taylor shooting.
Yeah.
In Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Because they try to dress her up as being totally innocent, having nothing to do with a drug trafficking organization. And that there was a lot of underground work to clean her up. You know, they still show pictures, even law enforcement periodicals, pictures of her graduating from some local college EMT. Yeah. She wasn't an EMT.
Right.
I'm so sick of that. And why the ones that don't agree with it either are still portraying that she wasn't.
Well, I know this is a subject for a whole nother day, but they do that specifically to create a greater divide between the police and the community. They're strategic in what they do, and they execute it flawlessly. It's amazing. It's a work of art to see what the political entities and activists that have done. Those with a dog in the fight to create division between the police and the community since around 2015 have executed their plan of action flawlessly.
Yeah.
And we have literally watched them do it and asked them for more.
Well, here's the crazy thing. And our viewers that are just learning about a lot of this stuff, I'm sure a lot of our viewers here already kind of know a lot of this going on, but I think it needs to be mentioned that the Breonna Taylor incident did not stem from a no-knock warrant.
No.
They applied for a no-knock warrant, but they decided at the last minute to run a knock and announce. Right. So I don't know why this ban on no-knock warrants, period. Because in my professional opinion, and I don't like to pound my chest on anything, but it came to me one day like, wow, so you're considered an expert in the court of law now. Okay, so my professional opinion, had they run an effective, executed no-knock warrant on them, nobody would have been shot.
So just real quick. So I went to covert operations as a commander, I want to say in 2017. I left there in 2022. Right, so I was there almost 5 years. We ran hundreds of warrants. 2020, things change, right?
Yeah.
And for those of you listening, don't take my word for it. You know, apply for it. You know, go down there and ask for an Open Records Act to watch them stonewall you because the lieutenant in narcotics, of course, there was rope and vice too, but he kept flawless records of our search warrants, and there were hundreds of them. And then so if you look at 2017, 2018, 2019, and half of 2020, it's just hundreds of addresses with us taking action. And then you get to August of 2020, and there's nothing. And I guarantee you, I haven't seen it, but since then, it's probably nothing. So we are no longer doing what you're expecting us, the public, to do in order to combat crime. We're just not doing it. And we're not doing it because they forbade us to do it.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, so, yeah, no, I'm glad, I hope we educated a lot of people. I think we both learned some things as well, things that we've had several conversations that we say we should have had someone recording it because there's a lot of good intel that comes out of that. Yeah. It happens with a lot of people that are good at what they did. They were good at their craft and all that. But I appreciate you coming on, and we're going to have to do this again on something else because you got so many other things. But viewers, please, you're welcome to Google search or whatever a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, and validate what we just said. I believe we're experts in our own right in these situations. We believe that them taking away the ability to run entries, period, whether they be no knock or knock and announce, is a valuable tool that they've taken away that is only harming the public. But please continue to listen in, leave some comments. We'd like to hear from you, good or bad, but be professional about it. Don't be just a fool and want to say something stupid because you hate the cops. But thanks for listening.
Yeah.